Please go ahead, sir. We are live now.
Good evening and welcome to everybody. My name is Ravi Ahuja and I'm the co-chairman for the National Council on Real Estate and Housing at ASSOCHAM and head commercial leasing at L&T Realty. We're grateful and thankful to the audience to participate. The topic at hand is very relevant and I think it's a topic of need, and we have an esteemed panel with us to discuss the various challenges and solutions towards the effect. Raising skills and welfare of construction workers for sustainable industry competency. That is the topic. I am handed the responsibility to quickly do an introduction for the same, post which I think we'll have excellent views from the panel. The construction industry, ladies and gentlemen, as we know, is the fastest growing industry in India. The sector is quite labor intensive and including indirect jobs provides employment to more than 35 million people. The industry is expected to grow as much as 10% by 2024, placing it at 4th rank in the job growth among major industries comprising of health and business. In this world, where such a fast-paced construction industry growth is witnessed, we also are faced with an acute problem, and scarce natural resources is something which needs to be looked at very closely. And hence, the sustainability in terms of sustainable environment is the only answer to safeguard our future from depleting away natural resources. Worldwide, the concept of green buildings is fast catching up. Now, eco-friendly materials and construction methods that will safeguard our natural resources are being developed. The Indian construction industry is fast catching up with all the objectives of the sustainable building developments. A quick data point. As per a recent survey, which is done about a few years ago, 79% of the workers are unskilled and majority of them are women. Now, this data point is very crucial when we talk about the scale of urbanization and modern living. While the construction work may seem straightforward, it is a very physically and mentally challenging career for the construction workers. There are plenty of skills and traits that the construction workers need to possess. It is also a good data point to understand that about 36% of the contractors fail due to the lack of adequate training and inexperience in particular types of work and tasks, and hence familiarity with the materials and tools needed to fill a range of crucial tasks such as surveying, MEP, framing, roofing, wall coverings, etc. are a must. Some of the skills which I think in today's time and age, which need a big catch up and also need of the hour, is the need of technology and the knowledge towards construction innovation that is happening. Be it building information modeling, drones usage at sites, 3D printing, augmented reality, smart buildings, particularly going forward, they will use AI, IoT, and robotics. The construction technology, be it steel structures, precast, which is now being used more regularly in the affordable segment, etc. And some of the impressive yet aspirational projects, one of which I would like to name the Navrit, the lighthouse project, where we are wanting to deliver with speed the kind of construction technology, almost 1,000 apartments in 365 days, and 6 such projects are all clearly pointing out to a challenging yet enabling environment, which becomes our responsibility as industry stakeholders and leaders to ensure that the reskilling and raising the skills of the construction workers is eminent for the delivery of these objectives. Again, alternative asset classes such as data centers, call for an upgradation of the skill in the knowledge, be it infrastructure like power, network, connectivity, submarine cables that these data centers will eventually host. And therefore, the construction worker has to live up and speed up to the expectations going forward. The communication skills, again, are going to be very relevant. 48% of the construction reworks occur due to poor communication skills, and that needs to be looked at. Finally, when we talk about welfare, it is basic in terms of safeguarding the health and well-being of our workers. Much of it in the rural and semi-urban areas still lack facilities in a country like India for sanitary ware, for sanitary conveniences, washing facilities, and drinking water. And then there are all the other welfare facilities towards medical, life, disability, etc. Finally, I'm hoping, and I invite each of our esteemed panelists to also share and give us insights about the challenges, solutions, and learnings we did during the most uncertain times in the recent past, which is ongoing in our lifetime due to the ongoing pandemic. And I'm sure we will really benefit from the insights which the panel shares with us. With this quick setting of the tone, I would like to invite Shri Pradeep Agarwal ji. He is our chairman for National Council on Real Estate and Housing, ASSOCHAM. He is the chairman of Signature Global India Private Limited, also the founder and chairman of the group, which focuses essentially on affordable housing among other segments. One of the key visions and missions of Signature Global is Har Parivar Ek Ghar. Sir, we are thankful for you to join us, and I invite you for the welcome address.
Yeah, thank you, Shri Ravi Ahuja ji, and your analysis was very, very good, which you have given. And I welcoming Mr. Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani ji, my mentor, and Shri Jayaprakash Saraf ji, Shri Mani Rangarajan ji, Shri Balaji A. Sharma, Shri Akshay Lakhanpal ji, Shri Arun Mohan ji, and Shri Ravi Ahuja ji. Of course, काफी अच्छी बातें आपने अपने एनालिसिस में बताई. सो इंडियन जो कंस्ट्रक्शन जो सेक्टर है इस देश का सेकंड लार्जेस्ट सेक्टर है, क्योंकि ये सेक्टर लगभग 51 मिलियन से भी ज्यादा लोगों को रोजगार देता है, जो मिलकर देश की जीडीपी का लगभग 9% योगदान देते हैं. और माना जा रहा है कि 2022 तक इंडिया में रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर लार्जेस्ट एम्प्लॉयमेंट सेक्टर कहलाएगा, क्योंकि तब तक यहां पर काम करने वालों का नंबर लगभग 75 मिलियन से ज्यादा पार हो चुका होगा. हम सब जानते हैं कि इन लोगों में लेबर का रेशो लगभग 50% है, जो बहुत ज्यादा है. वेलफेयर की बात करें तो भारत में कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर में 87% से जो ज्यादा लेबर है वो कैजुअल है, मोस्टली माइग्रेंट लेबर है. तो उनके लिए एक इफेक्टिव वेलफेयर नेट की जरूरत है. पेंडेमिक के वक्त ये नीड और भी ज्यादा जरूरी हो गई, जब इन मजदूरों की जिंदगी पर इस लॉकडाउन का सीधा इम्पैक्ट हुआ. वेलफेयर को लेकर अगर लीगल स्टेटस पर गौर करें तो एक लीगल प्रोविजन है कि जो कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर की देखभाल के लिए बना है, रेगुलेशन ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट एंड सर्विस कंडीशन एंड एक्ट ऑफ 1996 एंड द बिल्डिंग एंड अदर कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर सेस एक्ट. लेकिन इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के मामले में ये बहुत ज्यादा सक्सेसफुल नहीं रहा है, इसलिए क्योंकि इसमें सिर्फ 35 मिलियन ही इसके अंडर रजिस्टर्ड है. Moreover, there is no data to show the count in migrant worker. ऐसे में वर्कर्स का नेशनल डाटाबेस बनाने की बहुत ज्यादा जरूरत है। ऑल्सो देयर इज ए नीड, ऐसा कोई मैकेनिज्म बने जिसमें BOCWA के तहत बिल्डर्स के जो कलेक्टेड फंड हैं उनके इफेक्टिव यूटिलाइजेशन से उनको भी इंश्योर किया जा सके। स्किलिंग द कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कफोर्स में स्किल को एनहांस करने की नीड है। इस फ्रंट पर अभी भी काफी हर्डल्स हैं। सबसे पहले तो लेबर शॉर्टेज बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है। एक स्टडी में ऐसा एस्टीमेट था कि 2020 तक इंडिया में लगभग 95 मिलियन अनस्किल्ड और लगभग 5 मिलियन स्किल्ड कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर की नीड है। लेकिन फिलहाल कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर की एक्चुअल शॉर्टेज है, रिजल्टिंग इन द प्रोजेक्ट डिलेज। ये सब रियल एस्टेट, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर और हाउसिंग ग्रोथ पर भी असर डाल रही है। स्किल इंडिया मिशन के जो चैलेंजेस हैं वो भी साफ नजर आ रही हैं। सरकार ने स्किल इंडिया मिशन को 2015 में लॉन्च किया था ताकि इससे लगभग 500 मिलियन लोगों को 2022 तक ट्रेन किया जा सके। लेकिन और इसके लिए लगभग 5,000 करोड़ रुपए का एक फंड भी बनाया गया था। लेकिन नेशनल सैंपल सर्वे के मुताबिक 470 मिलियन जो इस वर्किंग एज के हैं उनमें से सिर्फ 10% लोगों को ट्रेनिंग मिल रही है। इसमें कोई शक नहीं है कि ये सिर्फ सरकार अकेले नहीं कर पाएगी, हम सबको मिलकर इसमें योगदान देना है। 2018 में नेरेडको और 2011 में क्रेडाई ने भी बहुत कोशिश की थी। कोविड की वजह से क्रेडाई और नेरेडको हमेशा, कोविड टाइम में भी हमेशा एक एफर्ट करते रहे, उसका कुछ असर जरूर नजर आया है। लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि अभी भी और ज्यादा इस पर ध्यान देने की नीड है। जो CSR की एक्टिविटीज हैं वो भी कहीं ना कहीं इस एरिया में और ज्यादा इंक्रीज की जानी चाहिए। एज ए ऑर्गेनाइजेशन सिग्नेचर ग्लोबल के लेवल पर हम पूरी कोशिश करते हैं। इसे करने के लिए मुझे लगता है क्रेडाई और नेरेडको जितने भी डेवलपर्स हैं वो इंडिविजुअल लेवल पर भी अगर काम करें तो एक बहुत बड़ी स्किल्ड मैन पावर जो है उसकी शॉर्टेज को कम किया जा सकता है। एक आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स जाकर सोचने की नीड है जिससे आने वाले टाइम में एक ऐसा लॉन्ग टर्म इम्पैक्ट नजर आए जिससे कंस्ट्रक्शन जो कंपनीज हैं और जो NGO या सोशल एंटरप्राइजेज हैं उनको स्किल के लिए वर्कर्स के लिए एक अर्निंग करने का जरिया बने। मुझे लगता है कि आज का ये जो प्लेटफॉर्म है, जितनी भी इस सेक्टर में ट्रबल हैं या इसके लिए क्या बेहतर किया जा सकता है उस पर रोशनी डालेगा। और मुझे यही उम्मीद है कि यहाँ से जो भी एक आउटकम निकल कर आएगा वो कुछ ना कुछ बेहतर बनाने की तरफ आगे चलेंगे। थैंक यू। ओवर टू रवि आहूजा जी।
Shukriya, Shri Pradeep ji, for the welcome address. Very pertinent points. I would now like to introduce our industry perspective speech, which is going to be given by Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani. He requires no introduction. While he is the immediate past president for ASSOCHAM and co-founder and managing director of Hiranandani Group, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani is clearly a face of our industry, and we are grateful to have him with us. He is known as the builder extraordinary. He has pioneered mixed-use township developments, particularly the Powai facility, which is one of the best internationally benchmarked township. They have further spread their footprint beyond Powai into Thane, Panvel, Alibag, Chennai, Ahmedabad, and Pune. Thank you, Dr. Saab, to join us. I invite you, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani ji, to please give us the industry perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ravi Ahuja ji. You had given a beautiful introductory address, giving and flagging of the points. Pradeep Agarwal ji, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपने बहुत बेहतरीन से सबको समझाया ये विषय के ऊपर. My friends, Mr. Shroff, Mr. Rangarajan, Mr. Sarma, Mr. Lakhanpal, Mr. Arun Mohan, and of course Rajorer ji. It's my pleasure to be here with amongst all of us. Let me put a very simple statement. In the good old days, when I wanted 500 workers 20 years ago, I got 2,000 workers. Today, when I want 500 workers, I don't get 50. I have to search and scrounge and see what is possible to get. And if I want skilled workers, it's even more difficult. The problem of today, as of this moment, we are down by 30% in terms of our labor staff required on various sites. And I'm talking about 10,000 workers that we are talking about. I have about 7,000 workers who are actually on the ground. So we are 3,000 workers short, only in my company, in Mumbai region. So 3,000 workers short in terms of the labor. There's a secondary part of it. The type of skilled labor that I need, which may be laying of tiles or painters or plumbers or people who will handle fitters, carpenters, there's a specific higher shortage percentage of those skilled workmen of a particular type which is required in demand. So these are the aspects which is the reality on the ground. And this is when the market is still in recession in terms of growth of the real estate industry. To provide housing for all in the totality of sense, we need to do much more construction than we have been doing in the past in order to meet the needs of the people. And now the Prime Minister has put up, besides the PMAY scheme, now the modern tenancy law also. Once it is done, and large companies which are there will be putting up housing for tenancies also, plus that 1 crore houses which are locked up will be now made available. So what is it that really we all need to do? And this is already mentioned by Pradeep ji and Ravi Ahuja ji. Both have very clearly mentioned about the needs of skills in the whole thing. I'm being part of the National Construction Skill Development Council of India and really participated in seeing how that growth story can be done. But apparently, a lot more needs to be done than what is being done. It's not that things are not moving, but they're not enough because we need to really scale up much, much more. On the other hand, if you look at the road construction, port construction, Mr. Gadkari is now constructing in place of 5 kilometers of national highway per day, 35 to 37 kilometers of national highway per day. So you need skill sets to look at the road rollers, to do all the other activities in terms of roads, ports, and other activity. If we want to attain a 10% GDP growth of the country plus, there is no other way but to see that housing and infrastructure becomes a part element which is really going to participate in terms of this growth. And as both the members have mentioned just now, very clearly that if we want actually this sector to grow, skills have to be taken into place. So all in all, whether it is ASSOCHAM, whether it is CREDAI, whether it is NAREDCO, whether it is any other organization, both at the state and central level, all these activities need to be accentuated in order to see what is the possibility to do. On the other hand, let's look at the retrospect. The retrospect is that our reports have come out that we have lost 10% of our population who are without jobs. On one side, I have no workers on my site or inadequate workforce on my site. And on the other hand, unemployment has increased. All these people, if skilled, could come on our construction site and would immediately get jobs. Today, they are floundering and they are going to the state exchequer and saying either in NAREDCO, NAREGA or any other aspect of how we are really going to be able to take these matters. So we have this conflict of position that we see of surplus in terms of unemployed people, while there is a dire shortage in terms of skilled labor to do. And we all in ASSOCHAM have to work together to see how this multiplier effect in terms of skilling can be done. Of course, skilling is also required in other industry. But as both my fellow members have just mentioned, chairman and co-chairman have both mentioned, that the absorption in the real estate and construction is so large. We can take millions of workers into this sector and they will be absorbed, and there is a dire need in this sector. So without attributing numbers alone, the size and scale is tremendous. So what do we have? We have the private sector, which also must participate along with the government sectors. We have various large organizations which will do it. L&T has set up a large number of bases where they have set up infrastructure in terms of training areas. My view is slightly different. We need a couple of things that needs to be done. First, we need to see that each construction site in India should become a skill development center. Today, we have video systems to do. We can train the trainers, and a combination of video programs which can be relayed along with training through videos and other things can be done. And each construction site in India can spend 1 hour a day in order to improve the skilling to be done. And this can be done across the board with IT enablers, which is available right on the mobile, on the iPad or any other systems to be done. This can be easily done. And the developers, the contractors would all be happy if a central agency could take up much more of these things in order to do it. ASSOCHAM could participate in such things in order to see that the downstream construction work and skilling of these manpower is done as quickly as possible. The second, another part of it is what we call reskilling or upskilling that we need to do. So we have skilled workers. They have been working for 10, 15 years, but the quality of work is not good. So what do we really need to do? We need to see that even the skilled workers who are already working need to be reskilled or upskilled in using various materials, tools, and others, modern ones which are there. So for example, we normally had the old shuttering that we did for buildings, residential and commercial buildings. Now we have shifted to Maiwan construction. Obviously, some sort of skilling is required. People who are unskilled workers are also using these materials, and we find there are a huge number of leakages which are taking place in these buildings. So all these require what we call reskilling and upskilling as soon as new methodologies and other things that can be taken up in the whole thing. And the training of trainers becomes important, and the use of IT measures needs to be done as quickly as possible. So while we talk about details in terms of the nitty-gritty in terms of each process, my reading is every construction site must be a training site. Each construction site should have mentors to take care of it, and a collective group in each city and others could set up small establishment centers which could actually take it to the next level in terms of having master craftsmen into the other sectors. So the last suggestion of mine is in each sector, whether he's a plumber, whether he's an electrician, whether he's a fitter, whether he's a painter, whether he's any subject which we talk about, you need master craftsmen. World over, you have master craftsmen who are champions in these sectors. They can be teachers or they can be mentors, which can be called to various construction sites in order to train the people, guide the people, and do it. And today, with video conferencing being possible, like we are doing conferencing today, we could have video conferences to do it. I've deviated from my standard speech that I was prepared and points relating to statistics of skill development and the possibility, but many of those important points were already covered by my two friends, illustrious friends, explaining the magnitude of the skilling possibility and the possibility of solving the country's problem of unemployment by doing it. No country in the world, may I tell you, has gone a GDP beyond 10% without focusing on housing and infrastructure development. The countries of the US may be a small exception in terms of it, but remember, housing starts are a big figure in the United States economy, and that is why also their economy continues to grow. But countries like Europe, Japan, and others, the growth of GDP is stunted, because housing is not required so much. They have a satiation of demand, and infrastructure also is already complete and satisfactory. But countries like India and China, where the growth story is huge, the the demographic dividend is very high, we can certainly do a growth story. So great program. Thank you very much for inviting me to give this speech. My idea is ASSOCHAM needs to say 1, 2, 3 is what we need to do, and get and mobilize all the departments and get all the associations together in order to do it. It's a national cause, not only ASSOCHAM's cause, and I think the Prime Minister's cause, if we want to reduce the unemployment in this country. Thank you very much, and really happy to be with you today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani. And thank you for spelling out a clear path ahead for us in your 3-point program or plan, as I may say. We made a note of it, sir. They're quite effective. Thank you so much. I would like to now move on and invite Shri Rajiv Talwarji. He is the CEO and whole-time director with DLF Limited. Mr. Rajiv Talwar is an integral part of the leadership team at DLF, and we are grateful to have him with us. Rajiv ji.
I'm sure you can hear me. Is the voice
yes, audible? You're audible. You're audible.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm very grateful, in fact, to ASSOCHAM, represented, of course, by a luminary like Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, who's the former president of ASSOCHAM. So you have right there at the top, and others like Pradeep Agrawal, plus lots of people from L&T here, I mean, skill development here. I think it's a stellar kind of webinar. And of course, to correct you, yes, I was a part of the leadership team. I hope still to be there. I'm an advisor to DLF now, and have spent a very, very good lifetime with DLF for the last 15 years, prior to that in the government. I think very little needs to be said with Niranjan ji having spelled out, as you very rightly said, Ravi, that he's laid out the future growth plan. And let's begin from his speech itself. Basically, you cannot imagine a 10% plus repeatedly year after year GDP growth if infrastructure, housing, construction, real estate do not come into the picture. I think that should be very clear. We are very fortunate that, I mean, you are there. There's another gentleman from L&T that they're there. And how many companies do we have like that? Even in L&T, we've been doing lots of projects from them. Basically, there is a skill gap. All over India, there is a skill gap. You get very good workers, you get very hardworking people, but how up to date are they in terms of technology? I mean, we did have a huge gap, if you recall, over the decades. I mean, whether it was IITs, whether it was good engineering colleges, which made up for that gap itself in the higher echelons of engineering. But now at the worker level, we do have master craftsmen, we do have a large number of very hardworking people. Our women were equally hardworking in housing construction. But where do they go now? If that industry or if that segment gets organized, please remember, whether it is like cement or steel or any other industry which gets organized, prices tend to rise. And you, I'm sure, in L&T are more aware than anybody else that the price of the labor component itself will rise. It will be made up to some extent with increase in productivity. So I think we need to take, as a nation, we need to take that call that are we going to get an upskill, which is what Niranjan ji said very correctly, that each site needs to become a training, a skill development center. Neredco, as you know, we were even thinking of adopting your films from L&T. We had asked L&T and Mr. Satish over there that please get permission from SNS. You have excellent films made out to train your staff. Please get them over. I think they're still trying to see whether they have to sell it or they have to give it free of cost to us. So there is an increase in the costing factor which impacts everyone. We were willing to run those free of cost at every center. Our big companies, maybe like DLF, maybe like Hiranandani's, where Rahejas and other firms all over India. I mean, Prestige, RNZ, name it. There is so much of construction going on. I know for a fact that for the next 10 years, DLF has a plan, I mean, which is really truly amazing. If we have 33 million square feet in leased commercial buildings, we are actually making within the DLF fold another 30 to 35 million square feet. It'll take us a good 5 to 6 years or 10 years. I don't know how to speed up the pace. Similarly, residential, there are so many players, but you all know it. Are those players really suited to mass, top of the line construction? Do they get enough manpower for that? We need to have people being trained. L&T had done it. I think when you were making Crest for us, you were training people alongside. Leighton was doing Camellias and they were training people alongside. But costs do go up. So how much, when you start saying that, yes, we need to cut down on costs of the final product, the government will not give you any land without auctioning it or tenders. The builder, of course, wants to sell it at the highest price. Raw materials basically are going up in price. If labor also goes up, how many people would be willing to use that labor, especially amongst the large number of developers and builders in the country? I think we need to take a call that, yes, if we have to replicate the success of China, where building after building in city after city, infrastructure after infrastructure arm is being constructed, I think we need to say that, yes, India will be a much higher spiral in the economic costs. If we are able to do that, believe me, every builder will have to start a training center wherever they are building a site. And those big projects will come up. I'm not too sure. I mean, maybe you can guide me further. Though I've been a part of the of the Ministry of Surface Transport for a very long time, from 1990 till 1995. But nowadays, the kind of construction which is going on, 35 to 37 kilometers per day, must be involving very high technology and therefore very well skilled workers. But then the cost would have gone up. So we need to present those figures also and make it available to the government that we do want to improve the lot of workers. Like Niranjan ji said only about Maiwan technology. Why Maiwan? What about steel structures? How many people do we have who are actually trained in making steel structures? The kind of buildings those need to be made over there to keep up with the best in the world. How are we changing and adopting methodologies which come in from China? How are we adopting methodologies which come in from the US? As he rightly said, that Europe is a laggard primarily because of the fact that their housing demand is very well satiated. It's almost there. I mean, how many great buildings do you see coming up in Europe? I mean, from a place where they were making multi-stories and they were making even the Eiffel Tower, which was a great steel structure in its time. How many of them are really coming up? And if we have to make high-rise structures, the cost, none of you would be, I mean, less aware than any of us that the higher the structure, the greater the cost. The greater the workforce needs to be upskilled. So therefore, there is I think the seminar and webinar is something which we need to repeat, whether it is in ASSOCHAM, CII, FICCI, or PhD CCI, or even locally in states and their capitals, that there is a dramatic change which is taking place. And we need to be a part of that change, that yes, labor will get organized. We need to make as much of affordable housing so that people stop living in slums or unauthorized buildings. And at the moment of a lockdown, migrate back to their homeland. I keep on repeating, and maybe sorry if I'm repeating it in front of you also, that how many laborers or the poor who had a house either on rental basis or any ownership basis, a pakka chat over them, how many of them went back? I think the number would be much lesser than those who did not have a house, who were living in slums, who were living in shanties, and who did not, who did not have a permanent job. And you and I don't guarantee permanent jobs to them. We use them location to location, project to project. So maybe the role of engineering companies, and by far, I think we have few but very good engineering companies like the L&T, that do they even take and have any permanent labor force which is really upskilled and available to them to deploy in a minute anywhere in India as they feel like, whether it is in infrastructure building, roads, highways, bridges, or in buildings? I think we need to rethink about it. We need to present this to the government, because the government has great plans. They're putting their best minds to it. They're putting their money to it. And they're starting really, really at the lower end, which is affordable housing. 300 square feet, 600 square feet, the best place to see is Mumbai. And therefore, just a second, sorry. Okay, sorry, been called away for a meeting. But I think we need to present this in a much, much better manner. We are discussing and we are beginning such discussions. We need to put that into the front bench of the government itself, that it has a large meaning to upskill a very large section of the population, and the kind of service we can do to the government would be much greater, but it would also involve a cost. And that is something which will come up but get negated by higher productivity. And therefore, if we begin in affordable housing, we would of course be making much use in whether it is commercial buildings or whether it is the high-rise and upmarket residential buildings. That's my contribution. Thank you very much for having me there. Sorry, it's just an odd thing that if boss calls, one runs. Yes.
No, thank you. Thank you, Sri Rajiv Talwarji. Thank you for being with us. We really appreciate, and we've noted your points. Thank you so much. Let me now move on to Sri Jaiprakash Shroff ji. He's the chairman, Skill Development Committee for CREDAI. Jaiprakash ji has contributed immensely in the field of construction, skilling, entrepreneurship, and sustainability. He is also honored with various awards, including the National Awards on E-Governance, etc. I would like to invite Sri Jaiprakash Shroff ji to give his address.
Thank you, Ravi. Am I audible?
Very much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, so the esteemed panel that I'm speaking to and the members who are there on the webinar, I really welcome you to this unique webinar that's being held, and particularly by an association that is not directly connected with construction per se. It's an association with wide wings, but thinking of something that is very relevant to the GDP growth. And having heard Pradeep ji, having heard Niranjan, who's my mentor in a way, somebody I look up to, I realized that the job of skilling would not be, it had to be taken up by us, none other than CREDAI, none other than NAREDCO, none other than us who are involved in the construction industry. And I would take you back to our Vedas. Gentlemen, we are the only country in this world that had the Brahmins, the Vaishnavas, the Shudras, and the Kshatriyas. We were the only country in the world that gave so much importance to skilling that we did not classify ourselves on the basis of color, religion, but we classified ourselves on the basis of skills we had. So the Brahmins were the educationalists, they were the temple people, the Vaishnavas were the businessmen, the Kshatriyas were the warriors, and the Shudras would do the work. So look at this great country, and somewhere down the line we lost this. It was systematically, I say, systematically done by the Mughals and by the British. If you all know, we produced the best silk in the world, a silk that could pass through a small matchbox, which was systematically
the skills of such people were systematically destroyed by the British. It is said that after the Taj Mahal was constructed, Mr. the great Shah Jahan saw that all the workers were mutilated, their hands were cut off. So this was the legacy that we left behind. But still, trust me, friends, when we travel pan India, we see construction par excellence. We see the mandirs in Rajasthan. We see the buildings in buildings all over the country where people come from all over to see what beautiful structures the construction workers of Indians have built. We have the Ellora caves in Aurangabad. Who else but the Indian craftsmen could have done that? And there was where we believed that yes, India is one country that needed skill development to change radically. And that little job was given to me in CREDAI. So when we gave a proposal to National Skill Development Corporation that we would take up skilling in a big way, it was not seriously taken upon. And it was only when we realized there were 2-3 major issues that were the problem issues in the construction industry. One is the shortage of labor. So look at what happens when a person is in demand. He doesn't need a certificate to get a better wage. He's already there. If Mr. Pradeep Ahuja is not recruiting, Pradeep Agarwal is not recruiting him, there's a DLF waiting for him to join. So he didn't need a certificate to get work. That was one part. Secondly, there was no aspirational reasons why he wanted to become a mason or a carpenter. As Niranjan rightly said, all over the world there are people, there are guilds, there are workers who form a guild and they are really respected like anybody else. A good master craftsman who is a carpenter in Australia, I met one such person, is as respected and as wealthy as a doctor there. So there were these guilds that were nurtured in various parts of the world, but India lacked those guilds, and therefore their aspirational levels for construction workers did not really get up. So therefore, a construction worker would not want to become a mason. He would rather become a janitor in a mall and say, I'm working in a mall, but not call himself a mason. So that was the second very, very detrimental thing for people taking up the construction industry. And third, so the financial inclusion. So if the construction sector was migratory and I came from Orissa to Pune or to Maharashtra, I would not be easily be able to open a bank account because I did not have my KYCs, etc. So these were reasons that kept the sector completely low, could not improve rapidly. And when we realized, when we went to NSDC asking for money, they laughed at me. They said, Mr. Shroff, you belong to the richest community and you want money in terms of grant. And we had asked for 150 crores as grant money. And there was this team of senior bureaucrats of the government of India at the North Block. And when I put up the proposal, I told the madam, she was a madam chairman who was heading the interview committee. She said, Mr. Shroff, I don't think I need to give you money. I said, madam, you've decided not to give me money. Therefore, thank you very much. I won't waste your time. And then she tells me, Mr. Shroff, you're an arrogant man, but what kind of infrastructure do you propose to have to train construction workers? And I said, ma'am, I don't need one sprinkle. I don't need any buildings. I want to do this on the job. I want to train the worker because he's not going to lose a day's wages to come to your institute. He's not going to spend one single rupee to be trained in an organized institutional program. He is going to work, and it is here only that we can train them, upskill them. So they listened to me. And then as a pilot program, they gave me 18 crores under the CREDAI banner to do skill development for 50,000 workers. It was courtesy actually Ram Durai Saab, who was heading NSDC, who came to Pune to see this experiment, and he was so impressed. And thanks to him that we were given this grant of 18 crores. This was way back when Mr. Satish Magar was the president of CREDAI, and we got this 18 crores. And friends, we completed training of 50,000, which was number allocated to us in a span of 4 years, with being awarded the best compliant NSDC partner of under the construction industry sector. So friends, we were able to complete it, return the money, also the certain surpluses we had, and we were honored with 21 national and international awards for having successfully done skill development through the NSDC campaign. So they also invited me on the board of Construction Sector Skills Council, and there we realized that skilling had to be done very differently when it came to construction. So when Niranjanji spoke about creating skill centers at each and every site, I must inform you, the esteemed audience here, that there is a concept called BICE, Best in Class Employer, which is being nurtured by CSDCI and NSDC. So, Best in Class Employer is a company that employs a finite number, minimum number of people, and the government is ready to fund you money to skill those people there on the site under certain conditions. So the real problem is no developer, because he has no ownership of the worker that is going to be there with him. So a plumber, when he finishes the job, joins Mr. Hiranandani from DLF or joins somebody else from one company to another. And therefore, why would Mr. Hiranandani spend money in skilling him? That's still the small view that we developers have still not been able to think differently, because each worker that he works with is working with a fellow brethren of mine, and therefore the quality that he has got because of his being skilled is actually going to be used elsewhere in some construction. So this attitude also of the builders or the developers has to change. Nobody wants to take ownership of training and skilling construction workers, and therefore it is left to institutional training. That is what is happening. So CREDAI is doing that, or probably NAREDCO is doing that. Why should it be an institutional training? Why should it not be the DLFs, the Shroffs, the Hiranandanis who is taking up skilling? Because it is in the larger interest that the industry has skilled workers, and also thereby improve quality, reduce wastages, and create great atmosphere in the whole industry. Friends, Niranjan spoke about how there is so many unemployed youth post the pandemic. So we tried a very unique experiment about 6 months back in Pune. It was called Kushalta Abhiyan. We realized that in Pune we realized that there were lots of people who have lost jobs. So we came up with an apprenticeship program where we have Mr. Farande, who is the president of CREDAI Pune, and he volunteered to spend about 30 lakh rupees to train about 300 plus workers. He said, if I will recruit them and I will employ them, and it will be under the apprenticeship scheme. So the idea was we would train them free, we would give them lodging free, and he would then continue to give them a job for 9 months at a specific price, or the rate that was decided. And we tied up with various government local bodies like the Kam Panchayats and got these boys on the sites, and it went on reasonably successfully. But then came the second lockdown, and the whole program had to be discontinued. So these are small experiments that need to be done. Let me also share a small experiment we did about world skills. I do not know whether most of you are aware that there is a skill competition in the world that every 2 years, and CREDAI was given the responsibility of training two young candidates under the tiling for tiling and bricklaying. And gentlemen, you will be surprised to know that in 2015, we led a contingent from India. I was heading it, and we took one mason who's working with ATS in Delhi. Mr. Gitambar Anand sponsored him, and we took one mason, brick mason, and one tiling mason to Sao Paulo. And there were 35 countries that participated. We had 22 hours in which to do a finite job, and each job was measured to the last mm. And I'm proud to tell you, we won the bronze medal there, which is, and we beat the Germans, we beat the Americans, we beat so many of them, except the Chinese, the Koreans, and some other country, Austria, who were very good. Otherwise, we were able to achieve great success, and we repeated that same thing in Abu Dhabi and in Kazan in 2017 and 2019. So what I'm trying to tell you, gentlemen, the skill sets of Indian workers is amazing. We have extremely good at jugaad. We can manage and complete things beautifully, and that has been proven. So India has been recognized as beautiful skill sets for construction industry. And why not then are we lacking here? Why are we not able to get what we should be able to do? This is the real question. And we as bodies, whether it's ASSOCHAM or CREDAI or NAREDCO, will have to do it, if not the developers. Actually, it should come from top down, top up. The developers should take up the responsibilities. We have very few companies like L&T or Gannon who are taking up the responsibility of skill development by setting up their own small training institutes, but that is too small. We need to have a huge number of skilled workers. Today, if I may so, we managed to do about 10 lakh plus workers in CSDCI, which is very, very small, very, very small. So we have to, as a team, gather together all our resources as CREDAI, as ASSOCHAM, as CII, and build this relationship with the government where they're able to fund also, because funding in construction industry skilling is going to be very, very important factor in taking this forward. And they would, if we are able to give them good proposals. So this is my little take, this is my little experience, and I'm ready, I'm always there to take up things if it comes to skill development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shri Jayaprakash Ravji. It's quite heartening, sir, and commendable on the NSDC 18 crore grant for 50,000 worker training. And also congratulations on the World Skill Competition. For me, of course, I heard this from you for the first time. I would now like to invite Shri Mani Rangarajan. Shri Maniji is the Group COO for Elara Group, and the Elara Group operates a few brands and initiatives such as the housing.com, makan.com, proptiger.com. Shri Mani Rangarajanji also holds an MBA from Stanford University. Currently, the Elara Group is now controlled by REA Group of Australia. Thank you for joining us, Shri Mani Rangarajanji, and please, I invite you to address the audience. Thank you. Maniji, sorry, you're on mute.
Good evening to everybody, and thank you so much for having me as part of this August gathering. There are several industry veterans and people who I look up to who have spoken before me. And while I don't have a direct involvement in construction, I'd like to provide some perspectives about what I've seen so far for my involvement in real estate. So let me come up with some figures first. So today, when you talk about the Indian construction industry, we are employing about 51 million people, the second largest employer in the country, and we contribute about 9% to the country's GDP. And in addition, the construction industry also creates about 40-odd million jobs, either directly or indirectly. And by 2022, we are looking at maybe at least a few more million jobs in the upcoming years. So one of the reasons why I am mentioning these figures again is that these figures are pretty staggering when you look at it from any perspective. And certainly I agree with Dr. Niranjan, who made a fantastic point when he said that every construction site and every developer should be like a skill development center. Because honestly, given the sheer scale of the size of the Indian real estate market, which is about $200 billion, we should be talking about upskilling and reskilling people. Instead, we are talking about skilling the construction workers. And given this sheer size and scale of the industry, I don't think a government or one single agency can do it all. It requires a coordinated effort from all of us, from the construction companies, from developers, from governments, and for bodies such as the National Skill Development Council and bodies such as CREDAI and NERIDCO. One of the things that I was thinking about, when I was given this topic, is that the construction industry's productivity is remarkably poor relative to other sectors. So when we talk about Indian industry, on one hand, we are talking about the smaller retail shops getting replaced by large-scale modern realtors. We are talking about lean manufacturing principles. We're talking about aggressive automation that have revamped the whole manufacturing landscape, right? But in contrast, when we look at the construction sector, we have actually been evolving at a very, very low pace. When you look at the labor productivity in construction, not only in India, but overseas as well, it's only averaged about 1% annually, right? As compared to about a 3% growth that the world economy has experienced. And all of us owe it to the construction industry and to the workers there to skill and upskill them because this is a sector which adds tremendous value. I believe that the construction industry must be adding at least $30 billion in value. And that is sheer and it's huge and staggering at any pace. So one of the things that our Prime Minister had said, a couple of years ago was the concept of skilling, upskilling, and reskilling. And when it comes to the construction industry, we are now, talking about merely skilling workers. When you look at the average construction worker, we should not forget the fact that a lot of them are pretty poorly educated. About 80% of people who are involved in the construction industry have some education of some sort, of whom about 55% just have primary level education. In reality, we should actually be having workers who are site ready when they come to work in the construction industry. On one hand, we are talking about a massive urban housing shortage. And due to the fact that, we are aspiring as an industry to launch affordable housing on a larger scale. And we are some ways behind the Housing for All initiative in terms of the pace of construction. Right? And on the other hand, as Dr. Niranjan said, we are talking about unemployment in this country and a shortage of workers when it comes to construction. A part of the reason is that there is no formal skilling. There is just simply learning on the job. And the average construction worker progresses from being a helper to a metal worker, right? And the person who's a construction worker, works in some cases in hazardous work environment where they are easily prone to injury. And they have virtually no time to engage in skill development activities, which makes it imperative for each construction site, as Dr. Niranjan said, to become a skill development center by itself. Construction workers are not very digitally fluent, and they are not empowered, which is the reason why, when you have an event such as pandemic, you see a large-scale outflow of workers, and then the developers struggle to find employees or construction workers to be able to complete the project on time. Given that we have a housing shortage, right? We need to look at accelerating the pace of construction in this country. And it's in our own interest to ensure that the construction workers are trained appropriately so that we can improve the level of productivity and speeden up the construction pace. Now, the world is getting digitized, and as we know, there's a large technology transition that is taking place across most sectors across the world, right? And as real estate companies look to reduce costs and look to reduce time for projects, there will be a bigger push towards automation in the near future. Right? And we need to welcome automation. And by automation, I'm not talking about 3D printing homes, but I'm talking about machines that can potentially help with some sort of bricklaying, plastering, and adopting new construction methods. And this greater automation can not only speed in the pace of construction, but can also help eliminate worker-related accidents. And that would be an added bonus for us. So there is an immense need, consequently, to begin skilling construction workers at a rapid pace and also begin upskilling and reskilling them over time so that we can train them for the upcoming age of automation. And this will not only help it, because this will help construction workers feel empowered. Today, the construction worker is very insecure about their wage earning potential. They're very insecure about labor contracts, their working conditions, and the way in which hiring takes place in the construction industry. So what we need to do is work on skilling them so that they are self-employable. This will improve their earning potential, improve their self-confidence, their well-being, and also prepare them for the upcoming age of automation. Again, thank you so much for inviting me as part of this August gathering, and looking forward to sessions in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Srimani Rangarajanji. We also now are joined by Shri D.K. Senji, who I will invite just after Shri Akshay Lakhanpalji, who's with us. Akshay is the CEO India Space for Space Matrix. Akshay, you have also been associated with the service industry for long, and one of the astute leaders when it comes to design and build and managing small to medium up to large sites. Thank you for being with us. I'd like to invite you to share your views with the audience.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank ASSOCHAM and Mr. Ravi Ahuja for having me here as part of this illustrious panel. I think what we've heard the last hour or so, very intriguing observations that my fellow panelists had. We spoke about reskilling and upskilling. We spoke about cost increase of projects owing to skilling or upskilling. The whole quagmire that there is an unemployment of around 10% in the country, and there is a deficit of construction workers, where we've all heard in the views that participants gave, that the amount of the entry barrier is minimal, so you can learn on the job. There is a reason why people aren't moving from a stage of unemployment to actual employment in the construction industry. So why is that, and what is the deterrent, is something that I wanted to give my views upon. Honestly, I personally feel that this is a sector, or at least this part of the sector, is extremely ripe for disruption because of the fact that, as I said, there is a huge gap in demand and supply. So there is a huge demand, and the supply is there, but the supply is not meeting that demand. So there is clearly a way that this gap can be bridged. And today my attempt is to provide a theoretical hypothesis as to say that how could that possibly be done. So just to give you a perception, or at least my perception, of the difference in terms of skill levels. An average, I mean, we are in the, as Ravi mentioned, we are in the business of creating workspaces, which are offices, which are meant for global corporations, Indian corporations, startups alike, where we're interacting regularly with the founders of the firm, CEOs, CXOs, trying to understand what's their vision of the firm, how do they want their office to come up. And one term comes up extremely, extreme number of times in the conversation is Enterprise 4.0, which means that basically we're moving. Enterprise 3.0 was when computers started coming in, and some of the tasks which could be done in a repetitive manner, in a sequential manner, were given off to the computers, and the skilled workforce was freed up. We move now to 4.0, which means essentially, which is co-collaboration between humans and machines, which is machine learning, which is artificial intelligence, to create products which require on the workforce front analytical thinking, complex problem solving, creativity, things which are very different skills from what the workforce is supposed to have. And that's the level of innovation, that's the level of growth in terms of revolutionizing of the work of the white collar jobs. Now, as a service provider, we talk about technology day to day. We provide our service end to end, so which means we've got cameras at site, we use billing information modeling, we use lean principles for design and delivery. With all of those elements within our system as well, when we turn to the construction site, we see that it is devoid of mechanization. Forget automation, it is devoid of mechanization. Our bricklayers, our tile layers are actually using spades to figure out I mean, that's the tool that they use, and to figure out the levels, instead of using a laser, they're actually using a suta to figure out what's the level and how do they achieve that. This level of disconnect, where, I mean, forget robots for construction or for painting of walls or plastering or whatever, the level at which we're operating currently is not the most optimum. I mean, I'll give you an example. I was 10 years back, we were delivering a project for a global retail brand, their store. And we did a certain amount of work, which was enablement works for the final interior finishes, which are the high-end finishes in a high-end retail store, to take place. We'd done all the enablement work in 35 days, and we were extremely proud that we've taken 35 days and we've gotten to a level, and the final finishes would be done in next 20 days and the project would go live. The client had actually employed labor out of Malaysia, and five guys came down. They were given an accommodation, and they came to the site the first morning, and we'd planned 20 days from that day for the schedule. And they took out their tools and tackles, and those 5 people were able to finish that site at 6.5 days. That site would have taken us, with the labor that we had, at least 20 days, So that's the gap in terms of productivity. Mr. Rangarajan mentioned that productivity is a very big deficit today in our construction industry at large. More importantly, there is a huge gap. We're talking about Enterprise 4.0 from a white collar perspective, but we're talking about Enterprise 2.5 or 2 from a blue collar perspective. So how do we bridge this gap between the skill set? And if you look at the manufacturing sector, this problem's been solved. At least it's reached to a level of automation, if not machine learning, AI, which is also happening across the globe right now. So what some people would think that this thought process to introduce machines or introduce tools and tackles would actually disrupt the livelihood of people who are working in this industry. Now, as we all heard, there is still approximately 20% deficit in terms of existing labor count for our projects. Now that combined with additional 1.5-2 crore labor that would be required over the next 2 years or so, that huge gap of 2.5 crore needs to be filled back into the system. And that would need, I mean, there is a possibility of 25-30% efficiency in the system, which can be gained and productivity can be increased. The difference between earlier and now is earlier, construction industry used to see competition from manufacturing industry or construction industry across the globe, where people would travel. There would be a brain drain, there would be a skilled labor drain to other countries from a ease of better life perspective. But now we're seeing these competition actually arising within the country itself from different industries. We're seeing actually the gig economy has actually created that bit of pull to people who know basic skill sets. They have a bike, they can ride a bike. They have a car, they can drive a car. What they're able to do is become a Uber driver. They're able to become an Amazon delivery boy. They're able to become a Zomato delivery boy. But doing all of this, what's happening is they're getting paid. Getting paid better. They're getting paid for the work that they carry out. I mean, in case of construction, everything is linear. So you work for a day and you get paid for that. However, now they're actually getting paid per job that they carry out. And most importantly, there's respect for what they're carrying out. So how would we bring this mindset? How would we change people's mindset? I mean, skilling is also relative, right? I mean, when we're saying skilling, in India, a carpenter learns the art of carpentry. So it's an art, right? I mean, so you learn that art of carpentry through your forefathers. They learn it by using planks and putting them in their toes and planing those planks, right? So if that's how they're taught, and you have to use a winch to actually plane that plank, or you have to use power tools, they're not adeptly skilled to do that. And now today, we've got two options when we're skilling a carpenter. We can actually skill them in a manner that they've been taught how to do carpentry, or we can actually teach them how to use power tools in terms of carpentry. Which side would we want to actually skill them with? Now, if we skill them with the former, the chances are that it would become redundant in some time. And obviously there are efficiency issues, productivity issues. If we train them in the latter, then the challenge is that they may not find power tools when they get to a construction site. Any project that's getting constructed, power tools are absolutely missing from the project site. I mean, they may be there for certain specialized activities, but not there for a regular tile layer, to a mason, to a carpenter, to whatever. So if they're going to learn skills and then not be able to provide for those, then what's the point of having those skills?
Sorry, Akshay, just cognizant
yeah,
of
sorry.
time. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Ravi.
No, Akshay, just cognizant of the time. Thank you.
Sure.
Could please also hurry this up. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So a few ideas that were there. So one is obviously registration and licensing. The other one is the fact that can we actually look at this as a platform where we create, where there is a demand, there is a supply, but we create that matchup and people feel respected. They feel the fact that they can actually come onto this platform, gain those skills, and then utilize their skills that they've learned to provide a service rather than providing for just labor. And I think that mindset change should be able to solve for some of these things. Now, whether that comes from a body, an institution, the government, or from a startup which actually takes advantage of the situation, is for us to be seen. But thank you very much. Thank you, Ravi.
Great. Thank you, Akshay. My apologies to disrupt.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you. We are fortunate, ladies and gentlemen, to have with us Shri D.K. Sen, Chairman of National Council on Roads and Highways, ASSOCHAM, and whole-time Director and Senior Executive Vice President for Development Projects at L&T Limited. He's also the Chairman on the Board of L&T Infrastructure Engineering Company and L&T Oman LLC. He's a member of the board of L&T Qatar LLC, L&T Aviation Services Private Limited, and so on and so forth. After a dozen odd years of experience with Tata Steel and development consultants, he joined L&T way back in 1989 and has added immense value to the organization in domains like design and engineering, business development, tendering, and hardcore constructions. One of his notable achievements has been the highly complex mega project which he led, which is the Mumbai International Airport, as project director. Sir, we're grateful to have you with us. I invite you to address the audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ravi. And I really am extremely glad that I am here today. It's a very nice gathering. I have just heard Mr. Hiranandani also, and quite a few eminent speakers. I think the subject of discussion today is like a a reason for Larsen & Toubro to be alive. I mean, this is the highest priority for Larsen & Toubro. We have at this point of time about 2.8 lakh workmen who are with us. And please understand that with the turnover of about 5 times, lakh, 13 lakh workmen to make sure we're able to get these 2.5 lakh workmen, because they are not working as a permanent employment in this industry. They are basically from agriculture industry. They convert themselves into constructions, and then again they go back to agriculture whenever the need for them to go and do plowing and seeding and crop cutting and all that. So very few of them take construction as a regular profession for them. Construction workmen are actually at this point of time the entire force of construction workmen, about 6 crores in India. Please understand that the entire worker community is about 50 crores in India. Out of 50 crore, 12% of the entire workforce are working in construction. And the way infrastructure has grown, right now at this point of time, for every 3 new jobs created, 1 job goes to construction. That means if 3 workmen get a new job, out of that 1 will be construction. That is the way the construction has gained importance. And these construction workmen are basically the skilled people are available in few states. Don't know for what reason, but somehow or other, it always happens that West Bengal, Orissa, Jharkhand, Bihar, some part of Uttar Pradesh, they generally produce all these workmen who are masons, who are carpenters, who are fitters and all that. And obviously fitters, it comes from Kerala also, because they, over the years, they gain a huge competency in steel fabrication and all that. So 5 or 6 states generally give source, from there we source the workmen, and we treat them with utmost care. And your subject is raising skills and welfare. Welfare is like a foregone conclusion. We have to take care of them extremely well. And in fact, we always go outside the country to understand what kind of facilities are provided in those kind of countries, to make sure that we come back and replicate the same. That is how today we have got standardized drawings for the labor hutment, the labor habitat we call it. We know that how many square feet of space a person should be given in the labor colony. We know that for how many laborers there has to be a kitchen, and we know exactly how many toilets to be put against how many kitchen, how many number of workmen. All these are actually systematic modules, and we replicate these modules when the number of workmen go up. In an airport like Mumbai airport, I must say that at the peak point, I had around 12,000 workmen working in the same site. And 12,000 workmen, Mumbai, the problem of locating workmen around the city, because there was no space given additionally in the Mumbai airport to put our labor hutments. So we had to go to Kalina, we had to go to many places, and we had to capture places where you can put our workmen, and then we had to run a very complex model of actually logistics to get them 2-3 shift, and we had to use those bus. After bringing it, they can go to other duties, they can come back. Very complex way we actually maintain this. We also we call them leaders or gang leaders. We put them into every colony. For every gang of 60 workmen or 50 workmen, there has to be a gang leader whose job is to make sure that they are being watched continuously in the camp, and they are to be put into the buses properly, make sure that anybody is falling sick. It's a very complex thing. We generally go to army, ex-army people, We've hired them to manage the workmen in the camp, and they have different kind of food. The Bengalis, the South Indians, and we go to abroad, there are Africans. The food pattern is completely different. There has to be kitchens. I must tell you, it's so complex, and then there will be fights. There will be always, you have to give them a day break to go and have some booze, enjoy around, and make sure they are brought back soberly, make sure they don't fight. It's very complex, and I must tell you, labor welfare is a great subject. That is why today we are having HR for workmen, apart from HR for staff. And these are people who come with qualifications of, law, workmen coming up with sociology. We get them, train them. It's a big subject. So workmen welfare is absolutely a very the basic thing to be followed, and there is, make no mistakes. If you don't do this, you can't be able to get workmen. Next point is skilling. Obviously, I was just hearing Akshay, he was telling that power tools, but trust me, I am in construction field. My bread and butter comes from here for a long time. My entire career, I have worked in this thing. We have been providing power tools in the sites, and we have been skilling people, and they are there. But frankly speaking, if you don't use power tool today, the project durations have come down from 5 years to 2 years. Nowadays, even contracts coming up for 18 months. We have to do a bridge in 18 months to 1-2 years. And it's very complex. Until unless we use power tools, we use kind of actually mechanized tools and systems, we can't really keep up with the time requirement of completions. Now, what is needed for the industry at this point? How much time do I have? Mr. Rahul Ravi, you have to tell me how much time do I have further?
Sir, I leave it to you, sir, but 2-3 minutes.
5 minutes?
If
2 minutes?
why not, sir? Yeah, yes,
Okay.
please. 2-3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
So upskilling is extremely important because the time of the project has come down, and also the volume of invoicing has gone up. We need to, and workforce availability has come down. So with all these things in the considerations, more good and means to join somewhere along the staff line. So all these things are very carefully planned by us. Larsen and Toubro at this point of time are having skilling institutes. One is in Mad Island. We have some area where we upskill actually we have got a complete skilling institute. Apart from that, we are having about 12 numbers of construction skills training institute. They are in various places. In each region has got one west, east, south, north, and also central. Like this, there are every 2-3 states we have a skilling center, and then we skill them. About 14,000 to 15,000 workmen are trained every year. This is like a bread and butter for us. They come in, they are like organically developed people by us, and then we actually take them right through. They become charge hand, foreman, and all that. L&T also has started e-skilling of people. We have a startup called L&T EduTech, which is going to hit the market very shortly, wherein we are going to virtually skill people actually able to understand and learn about the various skills. If they feel it is good, the important, they can come and join our institutes. And this is the way life has to go on, because with 130 lakh crore to be spent on infrastructure development for next 4 years, we have to have a huge skilled manpower, which is difficult to get. So hence, it is very important for us to take care of them very well and continuously work in mechanizing the sites and upskilling themselves. Thank you very much, Ravi. Thanks. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity.
Thank you, Shri DK Senji. We really appreciate your moving time and coming. I would now like to quickly move on to Shri Arun Mohan, who's senior advocate. Shri Arunji is practicing for over 50 years, and I have always experienced some great insights on the said topic. Arunji, over to you, please. And sir, my apologies, but we do have a time constraint. Thank you so much.
Namaskar, everyone, as I always begin. And I must thank the ASSOCHAM for this opportunity, and because the topic they have chosen was always close to my heart and is the most needed topic today. We as a nation must realize the wealth we have in our men and women and what they can create if they were given the right skills, the welfare, the security, and otherwise given, I would say, in one widest word, opportunity. And the construction sector provides it. I've had the privilege of hearing some very interesting, innovative, and other thoughts by the speakers who preceded me. To keep it short, what I will do is I will share on the screen a small picture. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Which one? Oh. It's opening. You are sharing other stuff.
No, this is not the one. This is not the one.
This is opening. Which one?
Yes, yes, sir. It is opened up.
Yes. Okay. Now, ultimately, it is five forces pulling, competing forces pulling in opposite directions, which we have to strike a balance. And I'll just list them. One is proper working conditions, no exploitation. After I was invited, I made some ground level surveys with the people I know, and the situation is really pitiable. How much exploitation is there because of there is no regular formal sector. Education. We are 74 years after independence, we are missing. When I see people working outside my house on the road in New Delhi, and I ask them, what education? None. Second, what is the social security for the future? The skill development, as the speakers before me rightly and very beautifully pointed out, is necessary. And I'll just give the reason. Being a lawyer, I have that style, that discipline and skill development together are required for greater productivity. So it is the actual productivity from each labor which we have so much scope for increasing. Just like production of agriculture for every hectare, we can also produce so much more from each individual labor. And it is that productivity which gives economic benefit to the employer, who is then happy to pay better wages and still more. Now, how will this come about? This is a slightly longer sheet. And if you will see it on the screen, the situation today is there is a builder developer as the principal employer. There's a master contractor. The labor contractors are in various fields, civil, which has its own subparts, plumbing, electrical, painting, and others. Now, this is partly legal, partly practical. Presently, the master contractor takes the responsibility and engages a separate labor contractor for each field, who in turn may engage subcontractors or agents for supply of labor fit for that task. I'll just add, 80% of that, they are absolutely do not know where they are, no formal sector, nothing. The labor contractor is not required to be registered. Only the master contractor is. So technically there is an overlap in the statute. But what I recommend is a statutory registration for labor contractor as a supplement or side by side. So today, electronics technology, they provide us the platform. We must harness. And for the labor, The one who come at work at site, their ration card doesn't move with them. That apart from one ration card, we also need to create an all India Provident Fund account, all India ESI, and a pension account. Let a part of that earnings go for what will be their pension when they go past the working age, so that the credit and benefits can be availed anywhere in India. This will minimize exploitation and build security for future. I have an idea. That is, we can consider an electronic labor card like a credit card, but twice in size. We give it to the labor and we have it in dual language. One English, right below it, the language known to that particular labor. We have, or so many languages in our country, computer translation, and simplicity is simple. And it's duly linked to his Aadhaar, bank account, provident fund, ESI, mobile number used. There isn't a labor today without a mobile phone in the hand, addresses and family details. They should know where he is working. Whenever he leaves the village, registers with the local authority. Upon reaching the work site, must get registered with the authority there by the labor contractor or the subcontractor. Partly reduce minimal wages, but add productivity linked wages, and 75% credit to his bank account. There are a lot of rules about what labor contractor would do, but most important, safety measures, labor housing, as a learned speaker said before me, mechanized kitchen food that will be 1/3 the cost and twice as wholesome, rather leaving the labor to fend for himself, and other welfare facilities, healthcare. Every district has a health center. At least the contractor can lay contact. And what about their children? The small ones and the others playing on the stones. They deserve education in the local government schools. Then low-cost mobile app with translation from their language, choosable, to the language in the area of work, choosable, and even very basic English. For skilling labor, now I must appreciate the speakers before me made this beautifully. Make instructional videos in metric units available at site, and practical laws and rules that balance competing interests are required. Steps at these will increase individual skills and productivity, and with that, our GDP growth. How do I stop this? Okay. Yes, I'm back on the. Hello. Stop. Hello.
Yes, sir. Sorry for the technical glitch.
Never mind.
Thank you. Thank you, Arunji.
So that is all I have to submit, and I must compliment ASSOCHAM for what they have done, and I hope that you all continue this mission. It will be a great day for India.
Sure, sir. Last but not the least, I would like to invite Shri Balaji A. Sarma. He's Vice President for Operations at LaborNet. He has played an important role in setting up vocational training centers. He has also held assignments with Glenmark, Times Group, Shahpurji, and a great set of experience there to share his insights with the audience. He is passionate about the skill training he's done for the unorganized workers and improve productivity on the same. Shri Balaji A. Sharma, I please invite you to address the audience.
Ravi, can I just disturb you for a minute?
Sir.
I just want to know the last point mentioned by Mr. Arun Mohan, because I think that these were really important, that how different forces are working against upskilling of labor, and we need a different system. So if I can disturb him, Mr. Mohan, just the last point out of the 5 that you mentioned, that's all. It's been a great seminar. Believe me, I've thoroughly enjoyed being a part of this.
Yeah, and we've run totally out of time, but sir, of course, this is very important. I would like Shri Arun Mohanji to please address your query.
Just one word.
Of course. Yes. Arunji.
Just 1 second, I'm trying to It mouse
Yes.
seems to be. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The last point I said, at the site, we need to give them opportunity of using modern mechanized and other tools. And for that, we can give them instruction videos, but we need to turn metric. Too many of them are thinking in inches and feet, which is reducing their productivity. What I'll do is I'll share this with the association.
I will ensure this will be circulated, sir, to this esteemed panel.
Thank you.
Sure. Rajiv ji, we'll move on with your permission. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I had just introduced Shri Balaji Sarma. Sir, I invite you to please address the audience. Thank you.
Much thank you all from the association this opportunity. Before even I start, I think I should tell you that I'm just filling in for Gayatri, so it today. But however, I hope whatever we're discussing or I have contributed in terms of information useful. Before even I can start on the points that I know there is very less time, so I just wanted to also mention certain things that each one discussing points that everybody knows. One of the things which I really like is what Pradeep was talking about involvement of CSR funds in this skilling. It's a very important point. Then also like what Raj was talking about, especially from the question that sir you asked, saying that why don't you look at skilled permanent workers? I think that's a very valid question. I think all the employers need looking at and answering. Apart from that, I think Mr. Dr. mentioned that each site should become a skill development center. I think these are the three takeaways that I also taking back with after listening. So what we look at it from LaborNet as an organization, as social enterprise, we with the unorganized sector. Comes to construction as top sectors that we work with from a skill perspective. Also ensure backward and forward is for them, whichever way that's possible. Today we can boast about 4 lakh alumni net we have across the country. Plus there is another 1 lakh which will skilling, upskilling, etc. in place to come. So I actually look at it different parts. There are so many stakeholders. So when what we look at is today maybe they for a large contractor or working what actually today is continuing something that worker point of view that we had the average is about 60 this is what so they are also looking at a wage increase and they're also looking some sort of a question from where they started. It becomes a semi-skilled worker, semi-skilled becomes a skilled, and then after that, what happens? Then become obviously forced entrepreneurs today. So while putting up this so-called profession, what is happening is not see their wages increase. That is where fundamentally that educating them or training, certifying them, definitely some sort of increase. So what we also see is one of the major issues with workers is resistance to learn methods and usage of tools. Like for example, I was on a short consulting mode. I was in North Africa, Shapurji. So that time I've seen plastering machine. I mean, 1,000 reasons to why the machine won't work, but they still go back and say I will do it. So there is a mindset issue also at the worker. Now, if you look at the industry, I think most of you spoke that there is a manpower shortage and there is a skilled manpower shortage. So what we feel is what I feel that solution is certification mandate at all the sites. If we are saying that we have fantastic system, CSDC, they've worked out, there are multiple levels of vocational training. If we tell the workers that if you have to come in and work in the site, you have level 2 certification or level 3 certification. A smaller extent should help and make them also understand that get a certification important. Contractors will also start. The second point that we feel is very important is from a welfare perspective. They don't have access to the schemes, the social security scheme. In fact, Arun was also mentioning. So we all know that from a BOCW perspective, the sales money which gets collected, there is 50 just sitting out there. 90% of it is not spent. Work with state governments of training and skilling, but still there is so much more to be done. I think instead of the industry opening up the welfare schemes, I think BOCW set up. I think that would be fantastic because the money is out there, social schemes, and Mr. Arun was mentioning about the card. Sir, there is a BOCW card which is may not be Dada to do, but it is there. All the workers in any state, even if those who are migrant state, can also have access, register themselves to this card. And so.
Sorry, I hate to interrupt you, sir. We'll request you to wrap up in a minute, then we can move on to conclusion. Sorry about this. Completely run out of time.
So, so the point, I think, major thing which I was trying to mention here, one is making certification and mandate so that if it's skill certified, whether it is or high, infrastructure or any other construction. Number two is getting CW at the state level actually start dissemination of this information of all the welfare schemes. To do that, they're actually looking at form, which will give the construction workers, contractors, and industry worker will know where requirement is cross borders. Companies would know where the workers are. So we are trying to link this. Then happy to share a concept on this.
Sure.
Gayatri. So
thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Balaji ji, for addressing us. I'd like to quickly take this a minute or two to wrap up. I know we've completely short out of time, and my apologies on that. We had a great list of panelists and speakers, very respected. We have a recording to share with everyone. The welcome address which Sri Pradeep Agarwal ji gave, he spoke about the migrant labor and shortages and also linked to the CSR activities. Niranjan ji shared with us the 3-point program, which is known to us. We made a note of that. Shri Rajiv Talwarji, thank you for sharing with us your concern on prices going up, but neutralizing that with productivity. You spoke about steel structures as well, and the speed at which your next 33 million square feet, which DLF is looking to deliver. Shri Jayaprakash Ravji, thank you for linking the Vedas to the competency of the workers and the other aspects of the other class of societies. We also heard from Shri Mani Rangarajanji that 80% of the workers are in some form or the other educated, and therefore how he's linking that to the ability to train, skill, and upskill, the digitized tech and the automation which will lead the way ahead. Thank you, Shri Mani Rangarajanji, for your views. Shri Balaji, thank you for emphasizing on the importance of training and certification. We also have Shri Akshay Lakhanpalji, who spoke about progression from enterprise 3.0 to 4.0, going straight into the examples of the gig economy. Thank you, Akshay. Shri Mohanji, a very useful slide there. We will ensure this gets circulated and your insights get known to everybody. And finally, Shri DK Senji, who joined us, and his views on a separate HR for workmen apart from a separate HR for staff, and how that has helped us in the industry, skilling with power tools which help reduce the duration and of projects from 5 years to 2 years, and so on and so forth. Thank you, everybody. All this has been noted. We'll circulate, and please feel free to write back to us, and we will ensure that this gets circulated beyond the panel as well. I appreciate and apologize for the overshot in the time frame. Thank you, everybody.